Hey everybody, it's time for the weekly news recap for the 14th to the 20th of November 2022. Just going to start up our caption bot. Caption bot, are you working? Yes, it is. Okay, cool. Right, let's get into it. So this week, Embracer Group had one of their earnings calls, and there's a couple of bit different stories that came out of that, but one of them was that the recent survey they sent out on what do you guys want to see if we decide to, go back to the Legacy of Kain franchise? You guys want to, what are you looking to see? And they were quite surprised by the sheer number of responses. So Crystal Dynamics has said it has received an overwhelming response to a recent survey designed to gauge interest in a potential Legacy of Kain revival. You may recall I did ask you guys to fill out that survey, so I'm surprised 100,000 people watched this show. That's incredible. Anyway, the analytics don't really add up, but I'm not going to question it. Such surveys usually receive a few thousand responses, but the Legacy of Kain one received more than 100,000. So this is from Crystal Dynamics CEO Phil Rogers talking in the Embracer Group's earnings report. In the past, we found that surveys typically get between 1,000 and 3,000 responses, but when we asked folks about Legacy of Kain, we received over 100,000 responses. 73,000 gamers, potentially, completed it entirely, and if you were one of them, we thank you very much. You're welcome. And we appreciate it. It was quite an effort given the survey was pretty extensive. I suppose, yeah, it was fairly lengthy, I guess, but, it's Legacy of Kain, just make it fucking happen. Legacy of Kain has been dormant for nearly 2 decades. The first game came out in 1996, the last game came out in 2003. Fucking hell, it has been that long. Holy shit. Wow. I'm fucking old. Anyway, we don't know what necessarily is going to happen about it, but Embracer Group have been vocal about their intent to revive or revitalize or reboot or anything existing IP such as Legacy of Kain, Deus Ex, Thief, Tomb Raider, etc. So they're probably going to focus more on their IP portfolio rather than brand new IP and stuff like that. Yes, good, because all of those games are games I would like to see new entries in, but also I would like to see some new games too, but you can't have them both, and if I have to pick one, more Legacy Kain. Alright. On the Epic Games Store, the free games this week, Evil Dead the game is a 4v1 asymmetric PvP multiplayer thingamajig set in the Evil Dead universe. You have the survivors and such, who are attempting to destroy the Necronomicon and prevent this, return of the Deadites and stuff like that. And then you have the Deadite, who is trying to stop all of that from happening. What it kind of sets itself apart a little bit is that it does have like a single player campaign kind of thing. Is it any good? No idea. But there you have it. And then Dark Deity, or Dark Deity if you prefer, is legally distinct Fire Emblem. Basically, you have a big squad of teammates, you compete in turn-based tactical battles, and then there's a lot of visual novel shit happening in the background, and that kind of thing. Those are some of the games that you can play soon, but what if you wanted to play some brand new games right now? Well, what we have here is the next entry in the Dark Pictures. This is The Devil in Me. This is essentially, you are part of a TV filming crew who have been sent or invited to a replica of the murder castle that allegedly belonged to H.H. Holmes, one of the first serial killers, potentially the first serial killer. And wouldn't you know it, it's a little less replica and a little more rebuilding of the murder castle. So yeah, it all gets a bit Saw, and there's all sorts of deadly traps and stuff that you need to try to avoid, or not, as the case may be. Maybe you want to kill all your players. Sometimes, yes, that does happen. What was I gonna say? Devil in Me is the end of the first season of the Dark Pictures games. It is a little bit longer than those games as well. It has an actual inventory system and a bunch of other additional things that bodes well for its next season. actually, if they keep this kind of stuff going. I'm wondering if they're making season finales or like their big thing, and the games leading up to it aren't. It would be nice if they just went, you know what? No, this is what their game's going to be like now. They're going to be like full on inventory survival horror shit. And we'll go all the way in, and we'll just stealthily develop a new Silent Hill out of nowhere. That'd be great. Anyway, that's The Devil in Me. Then we have... Sorry, I should be in full screen for this. Then we have Norco. So Norco has been out on PC for a while. It is kind of... It's like a narrative RPG. You can kind of think of it a little bit like Disco Elysium, but not really. It's... The closest thing is like it's a visual novel RPG kind of thing. But it has received a lot of awards, a lot of great press, a lot of critique. Favorable critique, rather. So I'm interested to play it. Wondering, it's also on Game Pass. If you have Game Pass, just, it's there, it's free. Why not check it out? I don't have Game Pass, so I'll have to find another way to get to it. It has been on PC for a while, as I said. It's making its console debut on PlayStation and Xbox and possibly Switch. I'm not sure. We have Somerville. So Somerville, we played on the channel. I'll talk a little bit about that in the channel update. But Somerville is an alien invasion thing where you are just some dude and his family gets split up during the alien invasion stuff. You get knocked out. You come to a little bit later. The only people left around is your dog. Your dog did not leave your side. And now it's up to you and your dog, who I named Scruffles, to try to reunite with your family, get to safety, and maybe, I don't know, see about helping mankind or something like that. Anyway, I'll talk a little bit more about my own experience with the game in the channel update segment. And then lastly, we have Pentiment. Pentiment is from Obsidian, and as you may be aware, and as I have made you aware, I think at some point, that Obsidian were recently bought by, not even that recently, bought by Microsoft. So that means this is a Xbox and PC exclusive just for Microsoft. And because it's kind of a first party thing now, it means it's also out on Game Pass. So Pentiment, you are this illustrator, I think, who is caught up in some medieval shenanigans. It's like fairly heavily story-based. I believe there's like murder mysteries and stuff you need to solve. Story-wise, I haven't tried to delve into it because I do plan on playing this soon enough. And since it is a heavy narrative-focused game, I don't want to know too much about the story. But as you can see, it is definitely trying to evoke the kind of illuminated, illustrated medieval manuscripts of forgotten times. It looks really good. I'm not sure if it has voice acting. I don't think it does. But it's an interesting art style. You don't really see it, ever. To be honest, I can't think of a game that's tried to evoke medieval manuscripts before. So, well, maybe like... what's that card game where you're trying to prevent yourself from being beheaded or be dethroned? Something like Highness or Royal or something. I don't know. I forget what it's called now. I think that had that kind of art style. Anyway, those are the games for came out this week. However, it is now time to talk about the worst parts of the video games, the video game industry. So, Sonic co-creator Yuji Naka reportedly arrested for insider trading. Okay, that was a weird fucking news beast to come up on my feed and go, huh? What the fuck? Yuji Naka, who you may or may not know, is one of the creators of Sonic the Hedgehog. Is often attributed just to him, but he wasn't the only one. Anyway, has reportedly been arrested in Japan on suspicion of insider trading. So this comes off a investigation that was going into Square Enix in and around 2020. So they've made a couple of arrests, and Yuji Naka is one of them. He's not the only one. A couple of other people were caught up in it as well, former Square Enix employees. This is a day after two other men were reported to have been charged with insider trading connected to Final Fantasy publisher Square Enix. Yuji Naka is accused of purchasing shares in the mobile game company Aiming, who were partnered were going to be partnered with Square Enix to make a new Dragon Quest mobile game. This was not public knowledge at the time when the shares were purchased. This is also the two previous people mentioned. The other people mentioned in Insider Trading, same thing. They bought shares in Aiming before it was public knowledge that Square Enix was going to partner with them to make a new Dragon Quest mobile game. I think it just goes into what the Dragon Quest thing is. So that's kind of it for the story. It's just he's been accused, he's been arrested. Whether anything comes of it, we don't know. They did stand to make a lot of money out of insider information, which is illegal, and it's like manipulation of the stock market and stuff like that. I'm not sure what the exact ruling or the exact legal thing is in Japan for insider trading, but just in general, no, you don't do that kind of shit. So yeah, that was kind of weird. It also should be pointed out that Yuji Naka was forced out of Square Enix after Balan Wonderland just did absolutely shit. And he accused Square Enix of releasing the game before it was ready. He wanted to give it more time. They were like, no, push it out. And then there was some back and forth about that, a bit of he said, she said, but also he's fucking doing insider trading as well. So I don't know, you have to take some of that information with a grain of salt. Anyway, moving on. Oh, so Blizzard games are disappearing from China thanks to some jerk. Okay, so NetEase, we're currently partnered with Blizzard to bring Blizzard's games to China. So it's mostly just their more recent games, Overwatch 2, Diablo 3, World of Warcraft, StarCraft, Hearthstone, Heroes of the Storm. As you might probably tell from a lot of that, that's a lot of mini microtransaction-y type games, so it's a fairly lucrative market. But something has happened between the two of them, and this contract, it will no longer be renewed starting next year. And it was kind of fairly like corporate legalese, corporate puff pieces and press releases on, we definitely enjoyed working with each other, but we couldn't come to some agreement, yada yada. There were material differences on key terms, and we could not reach agreement. That's according to NetEase. But one of the NetEase employees attributed the responsibility for this to a jerk, in quotes. Although it's funny, it is pointed out that Chinese players will still have access to Diablo Immortal because it's part of a different agreement. And also, I imagine it's a big money maker for them right now. Chinese players should also anticipate a sales suspension, so any kind of microtransactions in the game you won't be able to perform anymore. Again, that's fairly heavy in those sort of games, particularly if you're in the competitive scene and that kind of stuff. It does come in pretty heavily. Now, on the one hand, microtransactions should die a death, and I do think they shouldn't be in video games at all. But you bought the game. You are entitled to play the game. And the fact that it's, they're not in partnership with them anymore shouldn't preclude you from playing the game you purchased. You own it now. You should be allowed to play it, but whatever. The NetEase president of Global Investment and Partnership, Simon Xu, is the one who talked about a jerk. He says, as a gamer who spent 10,000 hours in the world of Azeroth, StarCraft, and Overwatch, I feel so heartbroken as I will no longer have the access to my account and memories next year. One day, when what has happened behind the scene could be told, developers and gamers will have a whole new level of understanding of how much damage a jerk can make. So somebody, somewhere, at least according to Simon Xu here, has just soured the whole deal. There was an update later coming out from Blizzard, but they said much the same thing. NetEase's approach was not aligned with our commitment. This is good. Blizzard's commitment to players, employees, and our operating principle. What fucking principles do you have? We've seen the fucking harassment allegations. We've seen the shit coming out of your union busting Activision horse shit. You certainly have no commitment to your employees whatsoever, so that's pretty rich coming from them. But it's the same kind of thing, it's the corporate saying something without actually saying anything phrase. So we don't know exactly what's happened there. We may never know, maybe a while. But the end result is players in China who have bought the game with their money won't have access to them anymore. At least the multiplayer segment of it. To no fault of their own, which is kind of bullshit. That's why it's in the industry bullshit segment. So, also as part of the Embracer Group earnings call that I was talking about, Volition is being punished for making a bad game, basically. Volition will become part of Gearbox after disappointing reception to Saints Row. So this is from Embracer CEO Lars Wingefors. He explained that Volition will be switching operative groups from PlayOn to Gearbox. So operative groups are like a couple of studios that all kind of work on the same thing or related things, and they're being moved from PlayOn to Gearbox, and Gearbox only work on Gearbox stuff, as you might imagine. The reception of Saints Row did not meet the full expectations and left the fan base partially polarized. I wouldn't say partially. I wouldn't say partially at all. Financially, Saints Row has performed in line with management expectations in the quarter. So there's the question is that they did as well as they expected it to do. Right? Why wouldn't you let them keep going? You know, they did what you expected of them. So why wouldn't you let them keep working on it? Why would you shuffle them off to become a support group? Potentially the reason is that Lars himself has a personal annoyance with it, perhaps. Personally, I had hoped for a greater reception to the game. It's been very polarizing. There are a lot of things that could be said in detail around it, but I'm with one hand happy to see lots of gamers and fans happy, and at the same time I'm a bit sad to also see fans not happy. So it's difficult. I don't know. I think you should try to take your own personal ego out of it and be like, you set expectations, you set sales expectations, they reached those sales expectations. That's a success. You know? Perhaps you shouldn't be looking at it as punishing, but I see this as punishing. You know, they're taking an IP away from them to work on an IP that they have no involvement in and have had no involvement in because they did the thing they asked you to do. Anyway, the decision coincides with the release of the first major update for Saints Row, and as part of that update, Volition said, this major update is just the start of our ongoing support for Saints Row in 2022 and beyond. Well, if they're being shuffled off to Gearbox, I don't think you can, I don't think that's true anymore. I think the game you have right now is all the game you're gonna get. Right, okay. Grammy Awards reveal nominees for new video game soundtrack prize. So this year, the Grammys added a video game segment nomination award. I don't know a way to put it. And the nominees have been announced here. Now, before I scroll down, I want you to get in your head who you think should qualify for a video game soundtrack of the year award. And then I want you to think who the Grammys think should be nominated for a video game soundtrack award, because I guarantee they don't. There's like zero overlap whatsoever. I would have thought like Elden Ring, Triangle Strategy, God of War. It's only recently, but it's a pretty good soundtrack. Signalis has a pretty good soundtrack, and so on. There's tons of games came out this year, and naturally, because the camera's in front of me right now, I'm drawing a blank. But there are some really good soundtracks for games that came out this year. None of them are in this list. So the nominees are Aliens Fireteam Elite, Assassin's Creed Valhalla Dawn of Ragnarok. That's the DLC, not even the full game, although that actually is a good soundtrack. Call of Duty Vanguard. Okay, Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy is almost entirely licensed music. Not like very little original music. And Old World, I don't know Old World, to be honest. They could have a good soundtrack, I have no idea. But what the fuck are these games doing on it? Like, no Eastern Territory representation. Like, the Grammys are an international award. They're not an America award. This is... I was thinking of putting this in dumb stuff, just because this is so tone deaf as a pun. This is so out of touch with what like the games industry would have put down as. I'm thinking that now. The Game Awards also wouldn't have put Japanese developed games in there either. But it's just, what is this? Did you only play the big blockbuster games this year? Did you only, did you ask your teenage son which games should go in the nominee list? Like, this is ridiculous. And it's so ridiculous that I was considering putting it in dumb stuff because it's so obviously stupid. But my reasoning for what goes in dumb stuff and what goes in industry bullshit is dumb stuff makes me laugh. Industry bullshit makes me angry. This makes me angry more than it makes me laugh. So Fucking hell, they're so bad. Like, there are some really good composers there. Austin Wintory's a good composer. Bear McCreary's a good composer. Christopher Tin, I think I've heard some of his stuff before, but I am not entirely sure. But yeah, Austin Wintory also did Journey soundtrack. Really, really good. Bear McCreary did the reboot God of War soundtrack, and he's done some TV soundtracks as well. I forget which exactly. Something popular and something recent too, but I can't remember what it is. But like, there are good composers there, sure, but the soundtracks to those games aren't like soundtrack of the year kind of shit, you know? Anyway, moving on. We will get into dumb stuff, so we're going to finish off with this. Amazon's MMO forces players to pay higher tax rate than Jeff Bezos. So this is more of a fucking capitalism in the real world kind of thing. Taxes on trade post transactions in the new world will increase by 2.5. Will increase from 2.5 to a whopping 5%. So they're doubling the tax rate in the trading post in New World. New World is an MMO which focuses pretty heavily on trading. Like, trading is a very big part of the game. And Kotaku's CZ Zhang points out that Jeff Bezos only pays a tax rate of less than 1% in 2014 and 2018. Trade is a big part of the player-driven economy, and the game itself has seen a number of economy-breaking issues like free gold, deflation. They've had to pause the economy because of gold duplication and stuff like that. These are all things that can happen in the real world. You know, flooding the market with money, you know, just suddenly unleashing a torrent of money does massively deflate or inflate. Economy terms, it just makes things worthless after a while because there's so much of it. You know, if you have something very rare, this is the only one of its kind in the whole world, right? Very expensive. This is one of 2 billion things of this thing in the whole world, worthless. And practically, might as well be. So the reason they've said that they're increasing taxes is more players and more coin is being poured into the economy. What do they do in the real world when that happens? You know, what happens if there's a baby boom? What happens then? Do taxes go up? Yes, they do. They don't go up on the richest percentage of people. Oh no. And this in games, video games, everyone is equal and that everyone has the same tax rate applied to them, but not in the real world. Anyway, they've made some changes. These kind of sacks of coins have a reduced payout. Valuable drops have a reduced frequency and stuff like that, which is causing, as you might imagine, requires you to grind more. That in the real world too. When you're buying power, your worth, your salary isn't worth as much as it used to be. Now you need to work more. Now, Mammy and Daddy both have to get jobs. And maybe Mammy and Daddy have to get 2 jobs each. And maybe they don't see their kids. And maybe their salary is only going to pay for childcare for the kid that they were forced to have. And so on and so forth. Are you seeing the parallels? I'm just thinking there are actually a good few like economic studies done on MMOs in particular, because they are a very small like economic system that you can monitor, that you can see happen in real time, and you can see changes. And they're easily viewable, and the system isn't so big. It's not like the entire planet kind of thing. You know, it's small enough that you can actually study it. And there's a lot of different ways MMOs have gotten around this issue of wealth, like too much wealth hitting the market and stuff like that. You can probably see it in like single player games. You might notice that your character ends up being like almost a millionaire by the end of the game, right? You're just drowning in money by the end of it. That doesn't really work in the real world, right? Because you got to pay for food and shelter and so on and so forth. You don't really have to do in a video game. So there's that kind of thing. But in MMOs, you can acquire a fairly large amount of gold or whatever the currency is. And a lot of the ways that MMOs have gotten around this problem of like massive inflation and stuff like that, or deflation, because they never change the price of items and stuff like that. I think that's deflation. Anyway, the way they get around it is they introduce new currencies. So they change currencies for different things. So if they introduce a new raid, or they introduce a new area or a new dungeon or something like that, they might have a currency that's tied specifically to that dungeon. So all the gold you've accrued over time is now meaningless. Everyone is back to square one. You have to accrue this new currency, whatever it is. And that's how they kind of keep these kind of economic systems in check. Whereas it appears New World is not doing that. It is just relying on gold and is having to make a lot of these different changes because of this increasing tax rates and shit like that. I just think it's interesting as a study point, and it's kind of funny when you compare it to the real world because it just ends up reflecting the same thing, except it's not equally applied in the real world. It's equally applied in video games. Anyway, what will we leave to? Yeah, we'll leave you to loop. Anyway, that was the news for November the 14th to the 20th, 2022. So the Legacy of Kain survey response is really, really good. I'm really happy to hear that, and I'm happy that Crystal Dynamics are happy to hear that, because I would really, really want to see another Legacy of Kain. I kind of want to see a reboot, to be honest, because the story was going in a weird direction, and I don't think they knew how to get out of it. So I'm kind of thinking maybe you guys should reboot it. And God, if they can bring Amy Hennig back in for it as well, that'd be great. I kind of doubt it, because she's all in on Star Wars at the moment. But I guess we'll see. Yuji Naka being arrested for insider trading is not something I had on my bingo card for 2022, so that's a weird one. Obviously, that will be an ongoing investigation. We don't really know if anything's going to come of it. Remember, they were in. This is an event that they were investigating from 2020, so it's already been 2 years that they've been looking into this kind of thing. Or I don't know. Actually, I don't know. I don't know when they actually started looking into it, but it's been a while. It's probably going to be a while more before we actually hear anything about it. The Activision NetEase thing is just bad for Chinese players. Or, sorry, players from the Chinese area. Players in the Chinese area who play games that they bought in the Chinese market. There we go. It's just bad for them, really. I mean, this won't really materially affect NetEase. They're quite large. This won't really affect them very much. And as we know, Activision and Blizzard are being bought by Microsoft, so this won't really affect them all that much either. So it's kind of interesting to see who the jerk is, who's responsible for the souring of this agreement. Is it entirely just a personal thing of this guy has just poisoned the well, or girl, I suppose. I don't know. We may never know, is the thing. What else were we talking about? The fucking Grammy Award nominees. I don't want to talk about them anymore, actually, because they just piss me off. It just pisses me off more than I wanted to. Okay, we're just going to move on, and we'll have a look at the channel update. So, that's what happened in the news, in the games industry this week, but what happened on the channel this week? So, first up, I'm going to show, as we normally do, here is our roadmap, shortlist, mosaic, whatever you want to call it, for the second half of this year. These are all the games that I intended, and still do intend to play up until the end of December of this year. Green ticks means we've played them. The yellow dots means they are in progress. The grey clocks it's on its way soon-ish. And if it doesn't have anything, it's a while off now. So on Monday, we played a bit more Signalis. Signalis. Oh God, I'm pressing too many buttons. Great. It's too many fucking keyboards. Playing a little bit of Signalis on Monday. We're still continuing with that. It's really good. I'm really, really enjoying it. This is a game that I was only intending to do for a bit. That for my Foley Plays Games for a Bit series, I was only going to play it a little bit of hours, and then I play it myself off stream, but I'm enjoying it too much. It's so good. It's really good. Survival horror. It mixes a lot of elements from Resident Evil and Silent Hill. It was very Resident Evil at the beginning, but it's gone very Silent Hill now. I am absolutely here for it. It's really good. I don't want to spoil anything about it, so that's all I'll say. We will be playing more of it tomorrow on Monday. Then we have Vampire the Masquerade Swan Song. So we got back to it on Wednesday of last week. Rather annoyingly, the game did not save the last time, so I am going to have to redo one chapter. I may have to redo it on the stream as well, just because of the way the game structure is laid out. We'll see. I may end the stream. I may end Wednesday stream because we're going to play it again on Wednesday. I may have to end Wednesday stream early or something like that, just so I'm not repeating stuff. I don't want to repeat stuff on stream, basically. But anyway, the way the game is split up is you have all 3 characters together for one scene, and then they split up. So we did Galen, who's there. We did Galen's scene on the last time we played it, and I played through all of that, and things happened, and such and such. And then I wanted to play through Leisha's scene this week, but what happened is the game saved way before that, and for whatever reason didn't save after Galen's scene. I think I needed to actually start Leisha's scene for the game to make a save, which is kind of shit, but there we are. So I played through all of Leisha's scene, and then we started MMs as well, but we didn't manage to finish MMs. That's what I wanted to do, but I was stumped on a puzzle, and it was like 3 hours into the stream, so I was like, fine, fuck this. I'm done. So I don't know, there mightn't be a whole lot left to MMs, and if that's the case, no, I don't really want to replay Galen's on stream, as I said, done it already, but on the other hand, we made some pretty bad choices in Galen's one, so it might be an idea to replay it, I don't know. Anyway, we're going to play more of that on Wednesday. Thursday, we played some more Plague Tale Requiem. Again, really enjoying Plague Tale. It's been great to just see them being given more budget and just more ability to flex, basically, because the game is gorgeous. It's very pretty. Like, game mechanics are still pretty basic. You know, there aren't too many evolutions on the previous game. It's just a bigger world. The stealth system has changed, I suppose, a little bit in that there are just enemies are a bit more freeform. They don't really have a pattern to them, or they don't really have a patrol route. Kinda. If you don't aggro them at all, they kind of do have a patrol route, but once they're aware that you're in the area, their patrol route kind of gets fucked up, and then it becomes a little bit more freeform stealth, which I actually don't like. I'd much rather they would, like, as kind of dumb as it is and a gaming trope as it is, but I do prefer, guess it was the wind, and they go back to their patrol. Like, I prefer that. I know it's like dumb and people make jokes about it, but I like it. I would stay like that, please. I prefer to approach stealth games as a puzzle rather than a think on your feet kind of thing. I don't know. It might rile up the anxiety in me or something like that. Anyway, we're playing more of Plague Tale. We are about, I think we've just crossed over the halfway point. If we're going purely by chapter count, we've just crossed the halfway point, but I don't know if each chapter is the same length and stuff like that. Anyway, we'll be playing more of that on Thursday. Friday, so we have a choice, or more specifically, I have a choice, because I'm the one who actually has to buy these games. So I have a choice of playing Evil West, which is a vampire Wild West fantasy kind of thing. It looks suitably, heavy metal, a little tongue-in-cheek, it's very, what's the word? It's like the opposite of minimalist, is what I'm trying to go for. It's just very in your face with this kind of thing. Very over the top. That's what I was going for. So it is a kind of close quarters, melee, and ranged combat. But close quarters ranged combat doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but it'll make sense in a minute when they jump into the gameplay. I'm just going to skip ahead when they jump into the gameplay. So you can see, like, enemies are fairly close to you, even though you're still using guns and stuff. And you do have melee abilities as well. It's almost a bit... it's a bit Shadows of the Damned, to be honest, in how close enemies can get to you in ranged stuff. It's not exactly Resident Evil ranged kind of thing, because enemies can still come at you from pretty far away in that, whereas they're a little bit too close to you. I don't know. We'll see. This trailer doesn't show off too much of it. There is, like, a fair bit of, like, melee aerial combat and stuff like that, which is what initially drew me to the game, because it was like, okay, this is going to be a Western shooter kind of thing, and then, no, the gameplay was, like, him uppercutting guys into the air and following them up with this, like, electric thing, and I was like, oh okay, what the fuck? So, yeah, I was definitely in for it after that. Okay, so that's choice 1, and then choice 2 is Gungrave Gore. So Gungrave is a fairly old series. It is a shoot 'em up. It is a 1 versus 1,000 kind of shoot 'em up thing. It's just absolutely revels in gore and spectacle and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm definitely here for it. I'm gonna skip through this kind of story stuff because it's not too important because I've muted it anyway. But gameplay-wise is lots and lots of dudes, and you have lots and lots of ways to shoot them, more or less. As you can probably see, they Evil West and Gungrave Gore have a couple of similarities to them. So, yeah, that's really why it's more of a choice thing rather than both. I am going to play both eventually. It's just a question of which one I'm going to play this week. But yeah, so Gungrave Gore, you are Grave. Gideon Grave, I think is his name. I forget now. I think he's like a vampire undead kind of guy. Anyway, he likes guns. He's got a gun coffin. His gun coffin turns into a gun rocket launcher or a coffin launcher or something. He's got big chains to grab people and spin around. He turns his coffin into a chainsaw at some point and stuff like that. It's very dumb, is what I'm getting at. But it looks like it'll be a lot of fun. So that's kind of what I'm going with. The story is very like PS3 levels of kind of shit. There's this gang that has this new drug that's turning people into super zombie mutant type things or something, and you got to stop them for reasons nobody knows. Not important, as usual. As usual, the story is not important. So yeah, we'll see. One of those games. It'll pretty much be which one is cheaper. To be honest, that's probably what I'll go with. And then on Saturday, we played a bit more of... Oh, sorry, we didn't play a bit more. We started playing Resident Evil 2, the original, the 1998 release. So we started playing Claire's Scenario A. We actually got pretty far, but the stream started suffering some lag, some frame delays and stuff like that, frame drops, and I didn't want to keep playing while it was like that, so I decided to cut the stream. Not cut the stream short, we were actually going fairly long at that point, but I was kind of wanting to finish Claire's Scenario in one go. We didn't quite manage it, so we are just at the elevator that drops you into the lab. So that's as far as I got with Claire. I am using an emulator to play the game, so save states and stuff like that. I am making use of that and rewinds and that kind of thing, which is why I was able to get through the game kind of faster than I thought I would be able to. Like, it's been a very long time since I've played this. And I remember some stuff, but I don't quite remember everything. Anyway, we'll continue to play that on Saturday. So yeah, that will be our schedule for next week. So next week, Monday, Signalis. Wednesday, more Vampire the Masquerade Swansong. Thursday, A Plague Tale Requiem. Friday, I have Evil West down here for now, because out of the two of them, it's the one I probably want to play a bit more. But as I said, whichever one's cheaper. And if they're both the same price, I'll flip a coin. And then Resident Evil 2 on Saturday, and then we'll be right back around to the weekly news recap on Sunday. Oh yeah, I did want to talk about Somerville. So we also played Somerville this week. If you want to check it out, the VOD is up on the channel. We played it on Friday. What I'll say about the game is it has a really good presentation, and it has a really good atmosphere. For like this kind of alien invasion out of nowhere, you just sort of have to figure out what the fuck's going on. Keep yourself alive, try to find your family, and so on. That part is enjoyable. What's not enjoyable is the controls. The controls are very clunky. Your character is kind of slow to move. They're slow to change direction. They're slow to respond to you, basically. And it is not really clear what in the environment is actually interactable, and how you interact with it, and that kind of thing. After a while, you do kind of get used to it, but certainly I was getting frustrated with my character not grabbing things. Things that were definitely grabbable, and they weren't grabbing them. And it was frustrating because I didn't know if I was doing something wrong or if the controls were just clunky. I don't know. There were performance issues as well, but I wouldn't attribute that necessarily to the game. I was running it off Steam Deck, and I don't think it is... it's definitely not verified for Steam Deck right now. Actually, they have a question mark for it, so I don't even know if it is compatible. So I wouldn't put the performance issues down to that necessarily. I wouldn't put the performance issues down to the game itself. I don't know. But the controls you can't put down to the game. So yeah, that kind of soured me on us because the controls were just super clunky, and I just didn't like it. But I did like the setting is good. The presentation is good. The atmosphere that it tries to evoke, yeah, it does a good job with it. Kind of goes off the deep end at the end. I finished it yesterday. It kind of goes a bit nuts at the end, but it's okay. It's on Game Pass if you want. It's free. If you don't have Game Pass and you're still interested in playing the game, I'd probably wait for a sale, personally. Anyway, that's what we're going to be doing next week. Probably should have done my recap of the full screen here now. Anyway, point is that this is what we'll be playing. Signalis, really enjoying it. Vampire the Masquerade, I am enjoying it. I was just really annoyed with that save issue. Like, autosaves are great and all, but manual saves are nice too. Just saying. give me the option to manual save. Even if my manual save just overwrites the autosave. That's fine. Just give me that option, please. Plague Tale Requiem, that's very long. This is a long game. Like, it feels much longer than Plague Tale Innocence. It just probably goes into the idea that it's, you know, they were given more budget. They were told to, like, knock it out of the park because I'm pretty sure Focus Entertainment were like, this is our flagship game for this year, so do a good fucking job. And they have. They have so far, anyway. Evil West, Gungrave Gore, they are certainly similar. They are definitely evoking the PS3 games of yore. I definitely was enjoying... when we played Solstice, that definitely had like a PS3 feel to it, and I was like, I miss these kind of games. You know, they're simple, they don't try to do anything ridiculous, they just look nice. And I can't say that for every PS3 game necessarily, but that was kind of what they were going for. And yes, when there were so many of them, they did become kind of samey. But since there aren't that many of that style of game anymore, they're not so samey anymore. They can be a little bit interesting. I don't know, that's a kind of personal thing. And Resi 2, it's a good game. But it's like, yeah, it still holds up. It's a good fucking game. Shit, it's still a good game. Anyway, hopefully I'll see some of you for some of these games next week. I'm gonna head off, so enjoy the rest of your evening, or your morning, or your lunchtime, or your nighttime, or whatever it is you are doing. If you want to catch any of the games that we played last week, the VODs are all up over on the YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/doomtrain5. And if you want to hang out live and give me shit when I'm playing Evil West, and you wanted me to play Gungrave Gore or whatever, or any of those other games, feel free to drop into the chat at twitch.tv/doomtrain5 as well. Okay? Alright, I'm gonna head off. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday, guys, and I'll see you tomorrow for Signals. Bye.